Hello and welcome to The Rest is Football with Alan Shearer, Micah Richards and me, Gary Lineker. We'll start with this Sunday games. Now, I have to tell you chaps, I haven't seen the two games today because I had something on today. Producer Harry got married, my son, first one to go.
Go on, us.
To Bella. We had just a little wedding today. They've got a big party planned in for a few months' time. So you're going to have to guide me through today's games. Let's start with Manchester United because the new manager was in charge, Ruben Amorim. I mean, it's way too early to make any judgments on his football, and he's got to find his feet. Again, he's coming in, isn't he, in a period where he's going to have to change things, but it's hard to do that immediately. What was the game like?
Obviously changed the system. He went to his favoured three at the back because everyone was sort of wondering what he was going to do and who he was going to play where. He played Rashford down the middle and Garnacho and Ahmad either side, sort of wing backs. And after 2 minutes, Ahmed went marauding down the right hand side and put a great ball in. Rashford really did well to get on the end of it, and I'm thinking, here we go. After 2 minutes. But they failed to sort of kick on. It was very much like what we've seen. And you've got to give great credit, I think, to Ipswich, who I thought came back into the game. There was no panic from them. More than deserved to get their goal just before half-time as they did. Onana pulled off a couple of incredible saves from Delap. So a draw was probably a fair result, but he's got a really big job on his hands there, and it's going to take a lot of time, and there's no way you can judge him after one game. He's going to need the rest of this season to try and implement his style. They need new players in there, there's no doubt. They need legs, they need improving in forward positions, but it's a start.
I was going to say, Micah, have Manchester United got the players to really compete at present?
Not in the way that Amorim wants to play. So he wants to play high energy. He likes his midfield to be really aggressive. It looks good, didn't it? For the first 10 minutes, yeah. They looked alive, they looked sharp, all the things that he thought. I was getting excited. And then it just went flat. I don't think he's going to get the players that he wants in January, but I think in the summer, we're going to see 5 or 6 players coming now. I just believe that I was a little bit disappointed in the showing. And that's not the manager. Of course, the manager needs time to implement his style. But it was almost like a fizzy drink. I expected so much. They started so well. Then it just fizzled out a little bit. On another day, Ipswich could have scored 4 or 5. Onana was probably Man United's best player. I like to see Rashford. He was sprinting a lot more. He had a little bit more energy. He played as one of the 3 up front, down the middle. Did he play with his chains on? I quite like them chains, actually. I bet they cost a few quid, though, eh? But yeah, all in all, from Man U's point of view, I mean, it's exciting times. I don't want to be negative, Nigel, but I would have liked to see a little bit more. But obviously, the players are still adjusting to what the manager wants. The manager, first game in the Premier League, it's not going to be the finished article. But I just think for the system and the players he has, it's not going to work straight away. He's going to need a lot of time.
For a start, he's got an age in midfield, hasn't he? I mean, he played Casemiro and Eriksen. It would be nigh on impossible for those two to do what he wants in terms of the pressing and the high energy and the sprints and the running and everything else. So, did you get a basic outline of tactically how he would want to play, or not yet?
So it's sort of 3-4-3. That's what he wants to play, but it was more like 5 at the back. Ipswich was pushing them right back, and then Man United was playing sort of on the counter-attack, which was just a strange game. So you had Amad Diallo playing wing-back on the right-hand side. Then you had Dalot playing wing-back on a left-hand side. So it looked really balanced when Diallo went down the right-hand side, cutting in on his left foot, which he got the assist for Rashford. It looked good, but it's where they were started from. And I just thought, at Ipswich, of course, it can be a difficult place to go. The buzz, first game. I mean, they've got some really good, exciting players. But I would have liked to see Man United a little bit higher up the pitch. It's almost like there was too easy force back. And I don't know if that's because Evans was playing as a little bit older. Mazraoui was playing as one of the three at the back. I expected him to maybe play as one of the wing backs. So maybe there was just adjusting to the new positions, but it just was a little bit cautious at times. I'd like to judge them when they're at Old Trafford in front of their own fans and how high or higher up the pitch they can get.
He's going to need this season to try and sort things out because I would imagine he's thinking they've spent a lot of money in the summer and he's thinking, not sure they're going to get the rewards for that. So whether they have to go again, whether they can spend again. But he's going to need the rest of this season to try and get things done the way he wants them done, and it's going to take time in Man United. It's been that poor at Man United for such a long time now. No one can go in there and just click the fingers and get it right instantly. It's going to take time.
Yeah. Ipswich are doing all right, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
I think, they've been competitive in a lot of games and they've got a bit of something, particularly at home, I think, where they're threatening. I know they got their victory away at Tottenham as well. I think McKenna's got something,
Yeah, they're going to give teams a game. I think they'll be competitive. Delap's a handful, should have scored today. He missed an absolute sitter. People will say it was a great save, but it should have been in the back of the net. But he's a handful, He's going to give centre-halves a tough time because he's physical, skillful, and he scored his fair share already. But yeah, I think they're going to give it a right good go this season in the style that he wants them to play. And I was impressed with him today. I thought they put up a real good showing.
I think Ipswich should go forward with numbers, and when they go forward, they really do commit. They leave themselves exposed a little bit, but they've got some really good players. And I know I mentioned him before, but Hutchinson. Mm-hmm. He's a really talented boy from Chelsea, I believe he was from, and he's just lovely left foot, always wants to get on the ball, not afraid of the ball, along with Schmodix as well, who's so energetic, wants to play a through ball. Then Delap running in behind. But they had the midfielder, I don't even know how to pronounce his name, it's Kajuste or Kajus. He's on loan from Napoli, and I thought he was outstanding. They took him off in the game. I was like, he's running the midfield. And last but not least, they got Leif Davis, the left back. In terms of what he offers this side when he's going forward, the quality of his left foot is just astonishing for a team that's supposed to be struggling in the Premier League to play with the freedom and confidence that they do. He's a massive outlet. Do you remember Doughty for Luton? Where they used to get the ball out wide and used to put really good quality into the box. Leif David is exactly the same with arguably a little bit more quality.
How about Liverpool? How did they look? I mean, I've seen the highlights and the goals, but it looked like it was tough afternoon for them to get the 3 points, but they did it again. And that man Salah, who I believe you didn't captain, Micah, in your fantasy team.
No, Gaz, I was having a good night until you mentioned that. me and Harry,
I know,
deliberated for we got the train back from Manchester
when we interviewed Rodri,
and we talked tactics for 2 hours, and we went with the decision to go with Haaland because of Spurs' his high line. Yeah. And we came to conclusion it's the right thing to do. And then the game today, he doesn't have to play well, but he just scores. He's so clinical. It's ridiculous. So bad captain choice.
His finish to get it back to 2-2 was just unbelievable. I mean, the keeper made a right hash of it come running out. But the ball over the top was brilliant. But his awareness and vision and his ability to finish it off in the way he did. I mean, oh my word, it was just an incredible finish. And then the penalty was the way he stuck it away. So he saved them again, man. He's just an unbelievable player. Liverpool, they struggled a bit at times, didn't they? Southampton had a couple of chances and looked as if they could punish Liverpool, but it's that man Salah. Whilst he's on the pitch, you just can't rest because Micah says he just doesn't have to be involved and he can produce a piece of magic just like that, and he's done it again. It's just incredible.
You know what's mad? Liverpool are not even playing that well at this moment in time, and they're running away with the league. They've still got another level to go. they're giving up daft opportunities.
Yeah.
After international break, you expect it. There's a couple of changes. A lot of teams play that way, but they're just a bit lethargic. And then the second half, a split second, they can bring on substitutions. Salah gets into the game. They take the moment. They're clinical in front of goal. And they go to Man City next week and it could be 11 points clear for a team which I think could only get better.
It's at Liverpool, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes, well, they go to they're at Anfield next week,
Anfield,
Yeah.
I mean, if they win that would be a hell of a lead over Manchester City. I mean, I know you've got to take into account probably Arsenal as well, who look like they're coming back to a bit of form. But, I mean, what a job he's doing. Arne Slot, really, to come in.
It was a big statement today, I think, particularly in the way City lost. So for Arsenal to win and Liverpool with playing today and not playing that well but getting the right result, I think it was a huge weekend for them.
We've got to have a word on Southampton before we move on.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
And Alan mentioned it at the start of the season, a couple of games in. He said, if you carry on playing this way, you are going to get punished. And I try and look at the bigger picture. The managers brought them up. They've played excellent football. But they're taking too many chances now. But taking chances where it's not even on to play. If you watch the highlights of the goals.
I watched them. I saw the first goal.
Admittedly, Downs is a midfielder. He sort of stepped in and played at the back. So they're sort of like playing as a back five. And he's comfortable on the ball. But the goalkeeper, who's a really confident, I've played with him, McCarthy. I think I played with him at 21s. He's experienced pro now. Yeah. Ramsdale's out for whatever reason. Every time he got the ball, he would try play out, and it's not even on to play out. I was scratching my head, and all their good work gets undone. I understand managers' philosophy. You want to play out, that's totally fine. But at least be able to play out and get your team set. And just keep making the same mistakes over and over and over again. And I thought they could get out of this rut of, Howard Bellis plays, scores, confidence, all those sort of things. But they're making too many mistakes. If they want to stay in the Premier League, they've got to change something, and they've got to change it quickly.
They play some really good football and I think they've got 2 or 3 really good players in there. But it's their decision-making at times. When they're under pressure, like the keeper did, just keep hold of the ball for a second or two and then make your mind up. And they're just getting punished for every error that they make.
Yeah. One thing I would say, though, if you're a manager and you've got a philosophy and a way of playing and it's worked really well for you and it's got you up the leagues, and then suddenly you do make these mistakes, do you throw that all away and just suddenly decide to play a different style that goes against your philosophies to a degree? Or do you stick with it and at least die on your own sword, so to speak? Or you might turn it round, because we've seen them play some good football. But ultimately, even if they change style, would they have the individuals within their squad that are good enough to keep them in the Premier League anyway? So it must be difficult, because it's a style of football that's really worked for Russell Martin. It plays really well, and we saw them go to Manchester City and perform really well. I mean, they've ran Liverpool close, who are top of the league. It's probably not the game, perhaps, to judge them completely on. But if they could finish some of their chances, if they had kind of better strikers and stuff, they'd actually really be a threat. But ultimately, it comes down to, have you got the players that are good enough to stay in the Premier League? I
mean, he must be really frustrated as well, because they do play some excellent stuff. But as I said earlier, it's just their decision-making at that crucial time.
Yeah.
They try to pass it when it's not on. I mean, like the goalkeeper today, there's no way he should have tried to attempt to make that pass. And then they make a hash of the clearance, and it's like, goodness me. After playing so well and doing so many good things and then giving a goal away like they have done. And that seems to be happening in most games. So it must be incredibly frustrating for him as well, the manager.
I don't think you have to change your philosophy when you move to the Premier League. I just think you have to minimise the risk. So if you know you're playing Liverpool and their front three can press, backed up by their midfield, you would just take a beat. take 5 seconds, make sure you're ready to. I'm not talking about old school dinosaur, kick the ball long. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about know who your opponents are and what their strengths are. Liverpool, at the right moments, although they're a bit slower on build-up, they will still press you if they have a chance. And Liverpool had about 7 players in forward areas. It was never the time to play out. And I don't know how much, if that was decision-making, like Alan said, from the players or the managers just saying, all opportunity we wanted to play out. But it just wasn't on. And all the great work that they did in the game just was undone by decision-making.
Now then, it's been a month since we premiered our new segment, Raise Your Guinness Glass, brought to you by our friends at Guinness, official beer of the Premier League. We love when the beautiful game meets the beautiful pint, so every month we dive into an unforgettable Premier League moment that's worth raising a pint to. So while we let our beautiful pints of Guinness settle, let's discuss the standout moment from November that we think is worth raising a glass to. What do you think this month's winner should be? Micah?
Come on, guys. It's got to be Ipswich beating Spurs. 2-1. Great game. I think we've been unlucky at times. I think they've had 6 draws in the Premier League. Need to turn them draws into the wins. And against Spurs, I thought there was excellent. Smodics, who I've talked about so many times on this show, scored a worldie. And then former Manchester City graduate, Delap, scores the other one. So I'm certainly raising a glass to that.
I don't think anyone expected Ipswich to go there and get the 3 points. So for them to go there and win and get their first win in the Premier League in 22 years, I think it was just incredible. So well done. Cheers.
Especially when you consider some of the results that Spurs have had, particularly when they smashed Manchester City, didn't they, by 4-0. It just shows what a great performance that was.
Do you have to say that? Smashed Man City? Did you have to get that dig in there, Gaz? Is that?
It wasn't meant as a dig. It was just a factual comment, Micah. Talking about that Sammy Schmodic's goal that you mentioned there, that was the overhead kick as well. Really special one, wasn't it?
Well, you two are a better place to talk about that than me. So go on, talk us through the technique, guys. Come on.
Well, I never scored too many overhead kicks, maybe 1, 2 maximum. But for him to have the belief he could actually do that and get in that position, then finish it off, it was a great finish, and certainly helped them go that long way in getting those huge 3 points.
I think I scored one at Grimsby once, but it's not quite the same, probably. I like Liam Delap, who also scored in that game. I think he's definitely got something. I know you mentioned he came from Manchester City, Micah, so you would have seen a bit of him. But he's kind of a bit of a throwback, isn't he? Old school kind of centre forward. He's kind of aggressive, runs behind people, terrific shot from long range.
He's got a bit of everything. I think obviously it helps that his dad was a professional footballer as well, just to guide him. But when he left City, I was quite surprised, really, because throughout the youth, he was always someone who was highly sought after. Like you mentioned, he's a bit of a throwback, but he's got good technique for a big lad. You know, I think his hold-up play for someone so young is exceptional at times. And what's he scored? 6 in the Premier League already? I mean, for a team that play well but don't get as much chances as the top teams, I think he's been outstanding.
I wonder if he's got his dad's long throw.
His dad had an incredibly long throw, yeah. It's unbelievable. I think I like him. I think he's got a bit about him, and he's not afraid to go head-to-head with the big boys, the big centre-halves, you know. He's got that aggression about him, and that's what I like about him. I think he'll upset a few in the Premier League this season.
He reminds me a little bit, Al, of Ferguson, you know, at Brighton. When he's very similar. When I look at him, I'm like, they run similar, they do similar things. Maybe Ferguson's a little bit better technically, but Delap's really impressed me this season.
It must have been a very special day for the Ipswich supporters, that long wait to get a Premier League victory. Yeah. And to do it at Tottenham, that wonderful stadium there, must have been a great away day for them.
Well, all those celebrations when they got promoted were for days like that. That's what they dreamt of, that they were going to go to the big boys and upset them, and that's exactly what they've done. So they enjoyed themselves, and rightly so.
Congratulations to Ipswich Town.
Cheers.
Cheers.
That concludes this month's edition of Raise Your Guinness Glass, brought to you by Guinness, official beer of the Premier League. 18 plus, please drink responsibly. For the facts, visit drinkaware.co.uk. Let's discuss the Saturday games. We did match of the day, of course, Alan, which you opened the show.
I did. And by the way, I was so nervous because we'd only decided to do that about a minute or two, didn't we, before we went on air?
Yeah, just before the start of the show, because that was I was originally going to do the opening line that you did.
Yeah.
And then suddenly someone said, "Wow, you could do that, Alan." And we went, "Actually, that'd be a really good idea." And you, you were going,
I only have to say 8 words and I was shitting myself. I've got a new respect for presenters. I know it's not easy, but honestly, I was like, for a minute, my throat was like, and even when the countdown in your ear was like 10, 9, 8, and they went on air, and then I was waiting for it to go and cue, and I was like, for a second, I was thinking, if you fuck this up now, you're just going to look a right idiot.
I was sort of hoping you would.
I could see you though, your face. You were so serious, and you were thinking, "Oh my God, I cannot mess this up. I cannot." You delivered it brilliantly. I'm
even sweating now thinking about it.
But how can you just explain to the listeners the mindset behind? Say you might have 3 analysis runs in the show.
Yeah.
You're thinking about what you're going to say, how you're going to get your words out, what points you want to hit, early doors, how you want your analysis to flow, all these sort of things. But something just as silly as that opening the show can throw everything off, can't it?
Oh, honestly, I was like, this. If I get one word wrong here, this is going to ruin me. Because it was like, with it being so important, I can just see the memes going around if I get a word wrong. So I was like, just, whatever you do, just don't fuck up here. Just get it right. So thankfully, I didn't mess up.
I saw a poll yesterday, Alan, of the proposed possibilities of who might present Match of the Day next season, and you came out on top with 22%. So you better get used to it.
Thanks. No, I'm quite happy doing what I'm doing, so I'll leave that to the experts.
Right, to the football. We had some good games yesterday. I mean, Spurs winning at Manchester City. I mean, obviously City are in a bit of a rot, but we have to start with what was a quite imperious performance from Tottenham in all aspects. The way they played out from the back, the way they pressed Manchester City, some of the football that they played was sublime. And to win 4-0 there was quite extraordinary, wasn't it?
I think I was doing Sky. I used the word flabbergasted after the game, and I meant every single word. I think, to put into context, without no Romero and without no Van der Ven, especially that battle and the way Spurs like to play, high line, be aggressive, no Bentancur as well. So Maddison comes into the side. And I didn't think it'd be easy for City, but I thought City would just dominate the game. I thought Spurs, in terms of their tactical nous within the game, I think they got it spot on. So if you look at their line, the line was 5, maybe 10 yards further back. And they was allowing Haaland at times to get the ball and then trying to defend the box. They didn't leave no space or much space behind. So they got that right. And then the midfield sort of battle where, because Rico Lewis was played in there with Gundogan and Bernardo Silva, there was almost like rotating, and Maddison at times was allowed a free roll where he'd go really high, then drop into positions, then go pick it up near the fullbacks. And Man City didn't know how to deal with it. And once Maddison gets his tail up, you know what he can do. It was like one of them performances to say, I should be playing in this side. And when they got the goal, the confidence within them was just went from strength to strength. And it's not often I say this with Man City. Man City dominate games, and the expected goals were still, I think, 2 in the game. But Spurs were the better side after the first 15 minutes, I would say.
I thought Spurs were brilliant in everything they did. I thought they made, particularly in midfield areas. Man City looked incredibly light, didn't they? Really light in the midfield. And they lost so many 1v1 battles. Maddison, I thought, was magnificent. And like you, when the two centre-halves were missing, I'm thinking with Ben Davies and Dragusin were in there, I was thinking trouble. And having said all that, it might have been trouble if Haaland had put one of his big chances he had. I mean, he had 3 big chances to score before Spurs actually did score. So it could have been very different. But take nothing away from Spurs. And they were, in everything they did, I mean, they won most battles 1v1, and they could have scored a couple more. And that's what they need to do. I don't know, 10 times out of 11, rather than being beaten to some of the clubs they've been beaten to, like Ipswich or something like that. How can that team be beaten off Ipswich and then go to Man City and perform like that? And that's what'll be scratching the Spurs fans' heads is that they know that's in there. That has to be every week, not now and again.
I think it was really that they bossed it in midfield. I think overall, I thought that was the key difference. I thought Spurs were terrific in that. As you said, you've mentioned Maddison. You know, I'm a massive fan of James Maddison. I think he's a very cerebral footballer. I think he's silky, particularly when he's on his game and he's confident. And some of his play I thought was superb, and he makes them tick in there. I thought Kulusevski was excellent as well. I mean, and they were a constant threat to the City back line. But it is that consistency they've got to find. But I think they're making progress overall. I know they've stuttered and occasionally on the way, but as I said so many times, I think it's a joy to watch Postecoglou's football. It doesn't always pay off, but whenever Spurs play, it's a game that you want to watch because you know, even if it's a bad day, you'll still get some entertaining football. And I think ultimately that's really what we want. But Manchester City, Micah, are you worried? Does this feel... I mean, they've had little spells before. They had one at a similar time last season where they drew a few games. But this feels a little bit different.
Yeah, it does. I think key players have been out. We can't talk about Man City and not mention the players that they've had out.
Of course.
Obviously, Kevin De Bruyne. We talk about Liverpool. If they was to lose a Salah, they're going to be a different team. Arsenal, if Saka doesn't play, they're not the same. They've lost Odegaard, and I've mentioned that many times. Foden coming back from injury, he's not up to sharpness. Kevin De Bruyne's obviously is not fit. Grealish is not fit. Savinho looked okay as well. They're too reliant on Haaland to get goals. But I think, I don't want to say it's a problem because I'm not here for clickbait, but Gundogan, when he left and he's come back and he's not had the same impact. I said at the start of the season, I thought it was a masterstroke because they don't need to spend 6 months to a year, someone buying in and learning the system, exactly what Pep wants. Gundogan knows the system, but at this moment in time, he looks half a yard off it. Bernardo Silva is playing 50% of the player that we saw last season. There's no real bite in midfield. Of course, losing Ballon d'Or winner Rodri is always going to be difficult for the balance. No Kovacic as well. But we can't really use that as an excuse because what we've said about Man City is no matter who comes into the system, they've always been able to play well. I think they're not doing the basic things right in terms of defending, winning the tackles, the high press that we normally associate Man City with. I think teams are figuring them out. I think what Man City are doing at this moment in time is too predictable. And it was a Bournemouth game, wasn't it, against Man City, I think it was. And they just had no fear. And teams are actually thinking, okay, we might concede, but we also might score. We've got someone like Kyle Walker who's been exceptional for Man City over the years, but just little things are starting to creep in with the Traore outpacing him, Werner outpacing him. That would never happen to Kyle Walker. And it's all these little things are going wrong. at the same time. So in answer to your question, I think it's more than a blip, and we'll see more in the Liverpool game next week, how big it is, or if they can recover that.
Yeah, what a challenge that'll be for them in their current state of mind.
Well, they've got Feyenoord, haven't they? First of all, in the Champions League on Tuesday evening. I'm there. I'm doing that game for the core comms. So they're going to have to bounce back in that game and somehow try and pick up a little bit of confidence, which is what they need to go to Anfield next Sunday, I think it is. So yeah, there's a lot of things, and I don't think we've ever said that. There's a lot of things that are wrong in the team at this moment in time. The pressing, the protection for the back four, too many players losing 1v1 battles. Haaland missed big chances again. Very similar to what happened against Sporting Lisbon. Haaland had some really, really good chances, didn't score them. Then the team's under pressure, so that has to change. And we're saying things about this Man City team that we've never said before, which there's no doubt is a worrying sign.
It's a big test actually for Pep. I mean, he signed a new 2-year contract, so he's still hungry for more. It really will be interesting to see what he does. He never puts his team away publicly ever. Or his players, but I can imagine in the dressing room, I think he might have been a little bit irate. I don't know. It's fascinating because I think it's the first time I can remember in his managerial career where you suddenly thought, "Ooh, his team's really struggling," and they are at the moment. And he admitted that. He said, we're finding things difficult at the moment.
Yep.
As you quite rightly said, Micah, losing Rodri is huge for them.
Of course.
And Kovacic as well. They didn't look really like they've got much power or presence in midfield currently. Relying on a young man like Rico Lewis and a seasoned professional like Gundogan in there. But they found it really difficult. So I think it's fascinating. And what a time to go to Anfield. Whoa.
What a game. What a game.
It's a great game. I think historically, when Liverpool have won the league under Klopp and Arsenal, so the last 2 seasons have been going for the league, Liverpool have been off it at times. The difference is this season is Man City need to be careful because they're just not up against one team. So Arsenal, maybe before international break, we're thinking if they lose one of these games, they could be out of the title race. So there's 3 teams in it. It's like you have to look at Liverpool's fixtures and Arsenal's fixtures. It's not just one team. And if Liverpool were to win next week at Anfield, I mean, it'd be difficult, 11 points. But if there's one team that could do it, Man City can.
Or, which takes me on to Arsenal, could they do it? Because they're a different side now Ødegaard's back. I mean, we talked about the fact that Manchester City are missing Rodri, and you wonder to yourselves, don't you, clubs like this, how can they have a player that they miss that makes such a difference? But I think that was the case with Arsenal as well. He makes them tick. You did your analysis, didn't you, Alan, on the difference of Ødegaard coming back, particularly the effect he perhaps has on Saka, and he takes away the fact that people can't double up or treble up on Saka because they have to worry about Ødegaard so much. And they play so well together, don't they, as well? It was a much more Arsenal-like performance that we've seen from him over the last couple of years.
He's a fantastic player as Ødegaard. I mean, he gives them so much. He brings so much to that team, the flair, the confidence, his ability on the ball. And absolutely, we said it last night, didn't we, is that when he's in that team, teams try to double up on him, which then frees Saka up 1v1, and you'd fancy Saka 1v1 against most players, Yep. And that's what happened yesterday. Arsenal were fantastic, particularly down the right-hand side, and the danger that those two, the understanding that they've got of each other's game, how and when to pass to each other. And Arsenal were much, much better yesterday. And you always, after an international break, it's you look at the teams and you think maybe they weren't at the best when you look at Liverpool this weekend and certainly Manchester City. But I thought Arsenal looked really, really good again yesterday.
How was the balance? Because I missed the game because I was doing Sky yesterday, just the last game, so I didn't get the 3:00 games. But how was the balance in midfield was it Ødegaard, Jorginho and Moreno?
Yeah, but he had Rice and Partey on the bench. Partey came on at half time, didn't he, and scored a great goal soon after half time. So he was able to leave one or two out as well. The balance was fine. I thought they were never ever going to get anything other than 3 points after that game. Saka got his goal, and it was a brilliant goal again. Once he got that, there was only one team going to win it.
I'll tell you what I like, Mike. I don't know about what you think because he plays in your position. Timber.
Oh, excellent.
I mean, coming back from a season out is not easy. I think he's got really talented footballer.
You know when you know someone's a good player? When you're playing fullback and he can play on both sides and still play equally as well.
Yeah. And he gets forward really well.
Technically, he's very good, got a good engine. You mentioned about the injury. He sort of comes straight back into it. Arsenal are really good defensively, aren't they? I mean, with Saliba, Gabriel, Ben White, Calafiori, and Timber going through the league, it's looking good. But every time I watch him, he impresses me. Even if he's one-on-one defending, he doesn't always... When I watch fullbacks now, it's almost like they go and press, and then they just... If they don't get the first one, there's loads of the spacing behind. But he always waits, and the timing of his tackle when he goes into it is really interesting. It reminds me of sort of old school defending, but he can still go forward as well. So yeah, he's looked really tasty.
Mm.
He's come back in at a time as well because Ben White, I think he's going to get an operation, isn't he? He's going to be out for
a while, yeah.
So a few weeks out. I think he's been carrying it for quite some time. So he'll be a bit of a miss, but with Timber coming in, that'll certainly help them.
Sorry, before we move on, just one line on Nwaneri.
Yeah, I was just going to actually just...
Sorry, guys.
But yeah, wow. He came on, silky little touch, moved, beat a player, shot just wide, and then got his goal. They obviously see a lot in him, and you can tell he's got something a little bit special, that young man, hasn't he?
Just a bit. He looks like an amazing talent, yeah. For someone so young. His finish yesterday was very clever. What a future he seems to have ahead of him.
Brighton are giving people a run for their money, aren't they? New manager again. It doesn't seem to matter whether they lose their managers or not, does it? They come in, Potter went, and then De Zerbi did really well, and now Herzl has come in, and 31 years old. They do find them, don't they, Brighton?
Do you know what they're really strong at? They've got some ammo going forward. Pedro, Welbeck, and Mitoma. Yeah. They've got Ferguson on the bench. They've got Minter there. I think I've missed one out as well.
Ruter's not doing bad from Leeds.
He's the other one as well. So they've got some ammunition in forward positions. Different options. Someone to come on and bring on if it's not going as well as you want. And João Pedro was fantastic again yesterday. If they can keep him fit, then they would have a really good chance of getting into Europe again.
I spoke to Herzl after the game for the interview that we showed on Match of the Day. I said, "Are you surprised how well you've done?" He was saying, "No, not when you see these players." He was very confident. He said, "No, not at all. In the position we're in," he said, "if you see how the players work." I then said, "So given the fact that you're not surprised, do you think you can go all the way and maybe be in a Champions League spot?" He kind of backed off at that point and said, "We've got to stay modest and humble and work really hard," which was the right answer. But he's another one of these. The managers seem to get younger now.
It's great to see, though, isn't it? I mean, when I first come into punditry, I was always of the mindset that not my view, but the way I watch football is what I want to talk about, and all the stats and stuff would come secondary. But the way Brighton do their model and how they recruit, not only players but managers as well. Like the system, it shows it works because you mentioned the managers there at Brighton. They've been exceptional, all fit into exactly what they want to do. But for someone, he's just 31 years of age, if I'm correct. Is he 31?
31, yeah.
To be doing what he's doing in the Premier League. Because I went to the early game against Everton, and I didn't think Brighton were that good. I thought Everton were the better team. I didn't know if he was going to be able to adapt to the Premier League. But he's took to it like duck to water, and he believes in himself without being cocky. He's just confident, and it's a great story for anyone who's out there who can you can do it at the top level if you're willing to put in the work, and let's see how long it lasts. But so far, he's been great. He really has.
Right, we've got with two producers on our show. We've got John and Harry. Now, Harry's getting married, but John, he'll be chomping at the bit for us to talk about his team, Wolverhampton Wanderers. An emphatic victory at Fulham. And once again, Matthias Cunha was the star man. What a game he had.
Before you go, Al, we've done Cunha Match of the Day.
I know.
For the last 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Running. I turned on Match of the Day yesterday. I was like, they're going to have to do Cunha again. He's the best player again.
Yeah. It was unbelievable again. I mean, the goal that he scored, the one that he bent in the top corner, was like
his
an unbelievable
second goal,
finish. Yeah. He was superb, and Gary O'Neill had to talk about him again after the game. And there's no doubt he's getting the best out of him, and he's been one of the players of the season up to now. He's been magnificent as he was again.
Did he mention something about it was his best game off the ball? So
he did.
I think
he did. He said he was really good off the ball.
Yeah, because I think in previous interviews, Gary O'Neill's basically said that it's trying to find him in positions on the pitch where he can be effective, but also do the hard work for the team. It's almost like that's working on and off the ball now for him as a player and the team.
Yeah, he's always had a lot of talent. The one thing that was always missing, I saw him play quite a lot at Atletico, was just his finishing, but he seems to have really upped his game in that department. He's a fabulous footballer. I said a few weeks ago when Wolves were really struggling, couldn't get a point, had a hard time, that I thought they had enough players, enough quality in their team to get out of trouble, and I maintain that I don't see them ultimately at the end of the season in a relegation battle. Certainly, that's what I feel. Unless they got one of 2 or 3 injuries, but that's the only thing. But they played really well. Yeah, and don't forget they went a goal down to Fulham, who've been playing really well, particularly strong side at home as well.
Yeah, I mean you can tell there's an air of confidence around Gary O'Neill now. After they had a really tough start in terms of fixtures, didn't they? And we said
really tough.
This is the time for them to step up when they've got winnable games, and they certainly have done. And you can tell that. You can just see there's a bit of a spark back in Gary, and he's got the belief back, and the confidence is back within the football club. And I always felt they'll be all right, and if they can keep him fit, then maybe more than all right.
Yeah, totally agree on that. One last thing before we go. I think VAR made one mistake in the Brentford game, the red card there. We thought he had an absolute right to go for that ball, and the keeper, both of them missed it, and it was just one of those things. But
well, I thought they got a couple wrong yesterday. I thought indeed he should have been sent off as well, because I thought that was a terrible challenge on Cole Palmer. But the Brentford one as well. The referee saw it at real time, and I know it didn't look great on slow motion, but he had to go for the ball. I just think the VAR didn't need to get involved and should have stuck with the referee's decision. It's
a classic example of where you can freeze a frame, freeze a picture, a still, if you want to call it, in terms of a photograph, and you could say, "Oh, that looks a bit dangerous," but if you actually look at it in normal speed, it's not at all. He's just going and trying to flick the ball in the net, as he's perfectly entitled to do. But they got that one wrong. Villa, they're going through a bit of a sticky patch themselves. We'll finish with Aston Villa and Crystal Palace, who are starting to improve and show a bit of the form that they showed towards the latter stages of last season.
Yeah, they deserved it, Palace. I thought it was a really good performance. Scored a couple of good goals. They were brave in what they did in terms of the tactics and playing the way they did, and they deserved a point. And it looks as if things are possibly starting to move there now at Palace for him.
Anyone in particular play well in that game?
Sarr played well.
Sarr,
yeah, real energy. Yeah, got behind them. Villa, we picked out with Villa how they were vulnerable to the counter-attack, particularly from set plays. There was a couple of similar circumstances in this game, wasn't there, where Villa were really high and they were chasing everybody
They
back.
got done. I remember, was it last or 2 weeks ago when Liverpool did them on the counter-attacks from their own set pieces? they got done again yesterday. Palace did the same thing. Yeah.
Okay, well, a big European week of football coming up. That's all for today's episode of The Rest is Football. We'll be back on Wednesday with our question and answer episode. And don't forget, we've also got that in-depth interview with Rodri coming out on Thursday. I'm sure you'll really enjoy that. Have a great week, everyone. Goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me, everyone. Have a great week.